Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Early Bath Football Podcast. Today I'm joined by many of the Early Bath podcast crew, and we haven't got Owen here, unfortunately. We don't get his dulcet and velvety
tones,
isn't it? We'll say tunes. Although Owen probably can sing. He's very good at singing. I'm joined by Chris, Ed, Ginge, Barnes and Lynchy. There are 6 of us here today. And we're going to talk about, first of all, the international break. I don't really like the international break, I will say. I prefer club football, but what are your views on the international break? And did you watch England over the last week or so?
Obviously,
Chris?
nobody watches it.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking to me, sorry.
Sorry, Chris. Yeah, no.
I did hear my name said, so I just thought it was an open question. That, yeah.
Chris, sorry.
Yeah, no. To be fair, I did watch both the England games. To be honest, the Hungary game one, I started watching about 26 minutes in because I was a bit busy doing other things and that. But yeah, England just they're just getting the job done. All you can do is just win your games and whatnot. I mean, Hungary away, you'd have thought it would have been a tougher game than what it was, because obviously Hungary, they had a really good European Championships. All right, they didn't get out of the group, but considering they was in a group with France, Germany, Portugal, and they played 2 of their games at a full capacity stadium in Hungary, you would have thought maybe they would have given England a bit more of a test, but they just kind of just sat back and just thought, we'll just take a point here and that. And really, they should have really tried and got they should have got the capacity crowd behind them and try getting the win. But yeah, no, I think as soon as England scored that goal, they completely controlled the game. And then, yeah, the Andorra game, obviously, it's a game England should be winning. I was a bit worried when it got to about 70 minutes and we was only winning 1-0 against them, but yeah, it was good to get the other 3 goals and that. I will say I didn't agree with what Lee Dixon said on commentary when he was talking about Jesse Lingard. Obviously, the big thing about Jesse Lingard is obviously he stayed at Man United. I'm sure we'll talk more later on about the transfer window and that, but obviously he stayed at Man United, and I think a lot of us agree that he ain't going to get as much game time, and obviously that'll have a knock-on effect, which he probably won't get, games in an England shirt. But Lee Dixon said, if he adds England goals to his CV, then he'll get time in the England squad. It's like, well, if he's scoring goals against Andorra, you could call up James Henry. He'd probably get a couple of goals against Andorra. But yeah, and obviously England is just doing their job, and obviously the next game is probably the toughest game in the group, away to away to Poland. Just got to watch out for the threat of Lewandowski, or as Thomas Muller says, Robert Lewandowski, Lewandowski. But yeah, as long as we keep him quiet, England are going through.
Yeah, the Andorra game, Ed, it was a very much changed squad, wasn't it, on Sunday in comparison to the Hungary game? Do you think anyone played their way into the Poland squad, do you think, for whenever it is, Wednesday?
Yeah, there were some interesting ones, weren't there? I did quite like the fact that Patrick Van Aanholt got a start. I think he's done very well for the last couple of years, but particularly when Leeds got promoted last year. He had a very good season.
England, Ed.
Yeah. Do you mean Patrick Bamford?
Not
the Dutch left back.
I meant Patrick Bamford. It's because I've been looking at the transfer window and I saw that he'd left Palace. Patrick Bamford, yeah. Yeah, Patrick Bamford, great left back for Crystal Palace. Shown to let go. No, Patrick Bamford starting up front was good to see, because I think he's had a good sort of 2 years. Thought it was harsh that he missed out on the Euros squad. Did he take his chance? Possibly not. I also disagree with what they were saying in commentary and at halftime about how he should be demanding the ball and all this malarkey. It was his first England start. I don't think you can be saying to your teammates that give me the ball here, there, and start calling the shots. I thought he did well, made some good runs. He had a couple of chances early in the second half, which he really should have been scoring. I think that probably led to him getting pulled off the pitch at 60 minutes, I think it was. So I think he did okay. Other than that, Trent Alexander-Arnold in centre midfield was an interesting one. Again, thought he did okay, but I don't think he set the world alight particularly. I think they switched it at half-time, didn't they? And he was based more on the right-hand side. So yeah, there's probably a couple that maybe could be selected for the Poland game, but I think he'll probably go back to what he knows. In big games, Gareth likes to go with players that he trusts and go with a bit more of a defensive mindset. So it'll be an interesting one to see how he sets up tactically, whether he does move away from his typically defensive and boring way of playing.
Yeah, and on Patrick Van Aanholt, I do. I actually have his gloves. He was when I was a matchday steward at Brighton Hove Albion. He threw his gloves down on the floor in disgust. So
we'll edit that bit out of the pod.
Yeah, no, it's fine because then my story's irrelevant. But
yeah, we'll edit that out as well.
I lost the gloves on a night out in Manchester. So if there's any University of Manchester student with a random pair of gloves, it might be Patrick Van Aanholt. Just putting that out there. Ginge, as you're a midfield powerhouse. Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we had this discussion on the chat, didn't we? And I was like, I thought it would work, and I thought it could work, and I still think it can. It's got all the attributes. It's just in that game, it's hard to gauge whether it really worked or not because they just had two banks of four basically sat in front of the goal. So as good of a midfield as you can be. It's difficult, really. You basically have to look for that killer ball every time from deep, which obviously even the best midfielders in the world struggle to do. And obviously Trent's he hasn't played there before, so I don't think it's really fair judgment for Mandora. But I definitely think he could play there in the future. And I think, to be honest, having that lot of versatility is quite good as well because he offers something different to Phillips and Rice, And with Henderson coming towards, what you say, the end of his England career, he probably wants to, maybe couple of years we've got left of Hendo, maybe if he wants to extend his club career basically, but usually they retire, don't they, to give him a few extra years. I think he's definitely a good option to have as a midfielder. So I think it definitely, maybe I don't think he'll play against Poland in the middle, but I could see him starting right back definitely. And I think Southgate will go for the four at the back, even with Lewandowski. I think he'll try and play and win the game. I don't think he'll be too concerned and try and play the three.
Yeah, and Barnes, do you think England have anything to worry about with the Poland game? Obviously, beating Andorra is the bare minimum. Do you think Poland pose a massive threat? Obviously, Lewandowski is a great player, but do they have anyone else, or are you sort of worried that they might cause a bit of an upset?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think, especially in the most recent Euros, we saw Poland very much flattered to deceive. They didn't play very well. Lewandowski is largely isolated in that team. And I think in the context of the group, England only probably need a point. I think they probably take a point away at Poland. So I think Ed and Jack have both mentioned whether, Southgate will sort of break off the shackles and, go more attacking. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'd expect same as usual from Southgate, the same usual suspects, the Calvin Phillips and Rice in midfield. And to be honest, I think that's, for this game, it's probably the right decision. I think a draw, as long as they don't lose this game, I think that pretty much guarantees qualification. And I think the way in which sort of England take these qualifiers, their record is pretty amazing. So I can't see an upset. When it comes to the big games that matter that, England tend to falter, but I don't think they'll have too much problem when it comes to Poland. I don't actually know, has Poland got a new coach or anything? Was there any issues after Euro 2020 because they were quite terrible. They were quite fancy before the tournament. They did not do well at all.
No, I believe they've still got Paulo Sousa. I don't think they have replaced him. He's still there.
Great knowledge, Chris. Really good knowledge. Lynchy, I think we've all sort of touched. I think everyone's touched upon the usual suspects will be back for the Poland game. We had a bit of a chat in the group chat, funnily enough, about Gareth Southgate. Is he trying to be too tactically cute about things such as putting Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield and trying all these things? Do you think that's fair, or do you think it's against Andorra we should be trying these things as opposed to, say, a World Cup semi-final, a major tournament? Do you think it's the right time to be doing these sort of little tweaks and stuff?
Yeah, I think those are the games you have those opportunities to. I mean, I think Southgate said something. The England team are only going to be together 4 or 5 more times before Qatar, if they make it, which obviously extremely likely now. So obviously when you get the team together like that and you've got games against Andorra at home at Wembley, if you're going to try things like playing Trent in midfield, those are the games to do that ahead of a tournament. you're not going to do that. Well, Southgate as a manager, I don't think will do that in an away game against Poland. So if he's going to take that opportunity, he's going to do it then. I don't think he's trying to be tactically nous or anything, because like the boys said, we know it's very likely that the away game to Poland, he'll revert back to his usual system and his trusted players, like he did throughout the Euros. I mean, there was a lot of talk before a lot of games. Sancho should be playing, Grealish should be starting. But Southgate seemed to surprise a lot of people by going with the same team, playing Trippier a lot, trusting Kyle Walker as well. So I think it's right that he does that in those types of games against Andorra at home. But I don't think he's trying to be tactically nous to a great extent, because we know it's highly likely that he'll revert back to his normal system in the next game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. On the international break, it was a bit of a crazy one, to be honest. There was a lot going on. Chris, what caught your eye in the international break?
Well, I think we got to talk about the obvious one, and that obviously is what happened between Argentina and Brazil. I mean, what happened was literally crazy. The only thing that it needed was, for Stone Cold Steve Austin's music to hit, him come out just, Stone Cold stunner everyone and just leave the stadium. But nah, seriously, like how the Brazilian authorities let Argentina be in the country for 3 days, and then as soon as obviously it weren't as soon as the game kicked off. I think I was reading on BBC Sport article. I think it was like 2 hours before the game kicked off. I think the Brazilian authorities sort of said, right, these 4 players, which obviously we know is Martinez, Romero, Lo Celso, and Buendia, they said, these 4 players need to be in quarantine and that. Whereas, they should have known about that a week before, because they was literally in their Premier League squads. I think there is more to it. I think it's more the fact. I mean, I don't want to report this, but like if I'm going to speculate, I think it's maybe a bit of jealousy from Brazil, because obviously Argentina could have some of their Premier League contingent, whereas I don't think Brazil was allowed any of their Premier League contingent. But yeah, it was just crazy. I mean, obviously I was just sat there last night just watching the Switzerland-Italy game. Next thing I know, Lace put on the group chat, have you seen what's happened in Brazil and Argentina match? So then obviously go on social media and that and just see, just Brazilian health officials just walk onto the pitch. Like, they didn't even say, we're going on. They just literally strolled on there. And I saw like Mendy got in a bit of a scuffle with one of them, which is quite funny to watch. But yeah, that was crazy. It was crazy to watch.
I think when we definitely got wind of it, we thought it was a bit of a weird one, a bit crazy. Ed, do you think it was an issue that transcended football, and it was a bit of a statement from Brazil or the COVID authorities or whatever? Do you think it was a bit more than a football game? It was more of a public statement or not?
Yeah, I think it was, because surely you would just manage that situation better if you weren't trying to make a statement. Like, they'd been in the country, 3 or 4 days, was it?
Yeah.
Like, you should have cottoned on way before that. You should have known that they were coming from England and that was on the red list. You shouldn't have done it while the game was going ahead. Like, why didn't they do it when they turned up at the stadium? Be like, well, you should be in quarantine. What are you doing here? It must have been to make a statement. There's no other logical reason as to why they would have done it in the middle of the game. And also, why did they just walk onto the pitch? Could they not have pulled the 4th official to one side and said, look, we're from the Brazilian Health Authority, those 4 players need to come with us? Just sort of stroll on, like Chris said, like something from the WWE. Clearly it was a statement.
Yeah, and for those who don't actually know the context of this, the 4 players which Chris mentioned, which was Romero, not Romero.
Yeah,
Romero,
Martinez, and who was the last one?
Lo Celso.
They kind of falsified their COVID documents by saying that they hadn't been in the UK, and if they had been, they would have to quarantine. And it's not like they play for Premier League clubs and are playing week in, week out. There's obviously
they don't know who they are.
Yeah, the most watch league around the globe. There's something wrong there, but yeah, I mean, Jack, did anything else catch your eye? Was COVID authorities walking on the pitch enough for you, or was there anything else in football that caught your eye?
Well, there were so many questions from that game thing. I remember we were going through it, and it was like, what do you do as a referee? That was my first thought. When I said about the referee's handbook, there's not a section in there for if somebody gets arrested mid-match. There's nothing. What do you do? I don't know what you do. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the 4th official probably thought it was a wind-up. They probably thought, nah, not a chance. Like these 3 blokes, because they didn't even look like they were official, just like blokes in suits, weren't they, with like a little badge?
streakers coming on. Where were the stewards? Why were they not taking off, giving them a fine?
It didn't even look that official. But apart from that, I mean, I don't know if there's anything quite as bizarre as that, to be honest with you. I mean, there were some interesting results. I think the one that made me laugh just as an England fan was the fact that Scotland only won 1-0 against Moldova. But that was just, I don't know if that's partly due to Scotland having a weakened team. I think they're still having a bit of problems with COVID, aren't they? I think they've got like a few players that aren't available. And I don't know, I can't actually remember off the top of my head some of the other results. There were some quite surprising ones, wasn't there, in the actual international fixtures?
I think there were some big wins bandied about. Did we say Israel got a big win against Austria? I think Serbia may have got a big win. I'm not actually sure. Barnes, did anything catch your eye?
The continuing woes of the Republic of Ireland under Stephen Kenny. I think he might have won one game in nearly a year. Don't quote me on that. That may not be true, but he's not done well at all since he was promoted from the Irish under-21s. And if you think of the Ireland squad, I was looking at I don't recognise many of the names anymore. I only remember it was, maybe 5-10 years ago you had like sort of Robbie Keane, Kevin Doyle, John O'Shea, Richard Dunn, quite a lot of well-known Irish players. And so maybe it's not the manager's fault, but drawing to Azerbaijan, they do have some still like Premier League and Championship level players is completely unacceptable. I think they tried to move their style to a more footballing kind of style, but I suggest maybe they go back to the full Sam Allardyce kind of
Route
football.
1, yeah.
Route 1. Absolutely smash it up to Jonathan Walters. He must have retired.
God, that's a bit of a throwback. I don't even know who
whoever plays up front
now.
for him.
Long
That's
ball
what
to
I mean.
Shane Long. Long ball
They
to
lost.
Shane Long.
I think I remember them losing 1-0 to like Luxembourg, didn't they, or something? It was a bit
did.
bizarre.
They did, yes.
And I mean, you're saying you can't name a Republic of Ireland player. I'll be amazed if any of you could name a Luxembourg international. I'll be absolutely amazed. I don't know any of them. No one? Anyone?
Someone's got one.
Chris, you got one in the tank. Chris, you got one in the tank?
I know that Daniel Sinani, the one who played for Norwich.
Yes.
I think he got loaned out to Huddersfield or something like that in the Championship.
Good. That's what we want.
I think Ash touches on a really good point there, Lynchy. The other home nations, it seems like they're not getting any better. Is it a case of their quality of their squads just dropped massively? And it's also been exacerbated by how kind of good England have been recently as well. What are your thoughts on Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Ireland as a broad stroke?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think England have been really lucky. I mean, with the young players that have come through over the last couple of years. I mean, they've obviously got a much better footballing infrastructure in place compared to those other teams. I mean, Wales, you can see they're pretty much relying on Gareth Bale, aren't they? I mean, he scored a hat-trick, didn't he, the other day? I mean, whenever he does retire, I think they're going to be really struggling. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head coming through who can sort of take on that mantle. Obviously, it's going to be quite hard considering how good of a career he's had. In terms of the other nations, I think in the past when they did do a bit better, I mean, when I'm thinking of Republic of Ireland in particular, they had a bit of a better managers than they do now. I feel like they've had quite a bad streak of the managers they've had in charge just not working out at all. I mean, didn't Scotland a couple of years ago have Alex McLeish back in charge? I still don't know how he gets jobs anywhere in football. I think they're all in a bit of a rut, to be honest with you. Yeah, and the focus is on England sort of carry the home nations in a way, sort of like it was in this year. The Euro's just gone.
We did sort of poach a few of Ireland's players, didn't we? Sorry, Tim.
Yeah. No,
Declan Rice, Jack Grealish.
Yeah, I think we did sort of. I can't name any more off the top of my head, but I think we did have a couple of them for a few home nations that maybe could have been eligible for other teams.
They're the two main ones, aren't they? I think
we
Wales
gave him Callum Robinson though, so evens out.
What a player! I think with Wales as well, they're in a period of transition. I think because they did so well at the last Euros in 2016, and now a lot of those players have past their peak and have retired from international football. So, like Dan says, they're very heavily reliant on Gareth Bale. When he goes, there's not much coming through. Well, there's a couple of players, but not that are getting regular Premier League football. I mean, Dan James has just gone to Leeds, so it'd be interesting to see how much he plays. Ben Woodburn has fallen off the rails a little bit at Liverpool. Tyler Roberts, Oxford legend. is not making that many waves. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one for Wales. We'll have to wait and see as to whether they can replicate their performance at the Euros a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. And, we've just spent about 20 minutes on international football, which is 20 minutes more than I'd ever want to spend on international football. So we'll take a detour to a transfer window review. And now the Early Bar Football podcast has taken an international break of its own because we haven't posted for like a few days, maybe even a week. And we did say that we would do a transfer window review special sort of thing. And today is that magical day where we're going to talk about who had a good window, who made the best signings, who made some very weird signings, and who do we think is going to sort of take the Premier League by storm. So I'll start with you, Chris, with all those questions in mind. Where would you like to start with that?
I'll start with a team who had the worst window, and don't worry, I'm not going to say it's Arsenal, although I don't think Arsenal do have a good transfer window, but for me, the team that had the worst transfer window was Newcastle. I mean, they've only signed one senior player, that being Joe Willock for 25 million. And it's kind of as if Mike Ashley went, there you go, Steve, that's the only player you're going to get this year. I mean, it's quite funny. Deadline day, he was listing like some of the deals they was trying to go for. And, they was trying to get Hamza Chowdhury on loan from Leicester. I mean, is Chowdhury a good player? I mean, he might be a good player for towards the bottom of the Premier League and whatnot, but Newcastle just needed more. I mean, if Callum Wilson gets injured, they're in massive trouble. Dwight Gale has pretty much proven he's a championship, striker at best. He scores goals in the championship. As soon as he hits the Premier League, he just doesn't score. And then as for Sir Joseph Linton himself, he is as Darren Farley would say when he's doing a Steve Bruce impression, he is literally the £40 million Brazilian Jeff Horsfield. And I think that's being a bit disrespectful to Jeff Horsfield. I think Jeff Horsfield was probably a better striker than Joe Linton. But yeah, I don't think Newcastle had a good window. In terms of a team that did have a good window, I'd say it was a good window. It wasn't a perfect window, but I'm not just saying this because we got criticism about them from a fan of the team, but I'm going to say West Ham. I think West Ham did have a good window in the end because, all right, it wasn't a perfect window because I think West Ham did need, an out-and-out striker to be a bit of competition for Antonio, or if Antonio got injured, someone that they could just put right in and play rather than because, what is it? They have to look to either play like a Vlasic, a Bowen, or a Yarmolenko sort of as a false nine up front rather than an out-and-out striker. But I think Zuma is a great signing at centre back for them. Obviously, Krau, they're continuing with the whole Czech Republic connection with obviously him, Souček, Soufal, and I've seen Krau play a couple of times for the Czech Republic, and he's quite impressed me. He looks like a tireless, hard-working midfielder, and obviously. Maybe I'm putting a bit of faith in Vlasic, but he has done quite well since he went out to CSKA Moscow and that. And I think he want to prove people that he can actually be a good player in the Prem because obviously he did have that spell at Everton, which it didn't work out for him. But I think David Moyes would like to hope that he'd actually come in, with a bit of fire in his belly, sort of saying, I want to prove people, I want to prove I am a Premier League quality player. And then your final question saying, as for weird transfer, I mean, obviously this is a window where Messi and Ronaldo have moved, which I would never have thought would happen. But I think the weirdest one is probably Griezmann going back to Atletico Madrid. I mean, Simeone and co must be absolutely laughing when it's like, why don't we put in a loan offer for Griezmann, see if it actually works? Because what is it? Barcelona spent over £100 million on Griezmann, never worked out for him there. And then they're selling him at a huge loss. I mean, it's mental, but yeah. I think Griezmann will do well with Atletico. He knows Simeone's style, and this might be a bold statement for me, but I think this has got to be the season where Atletico have to push for that Champions League crown.
Yeah, I think that the Griezmann one definitely caught my eye. I think Barca sold them Suarez, and obviously they got Griezmann a year or two beforehand. and Atletico still won the league. So they've kind of got Griezmann a league title and Luis Suarez all for literally nothing, I imagine. So that's an interesting one.
They've also got Cunha, haven't they? From sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt again. They've got
No, of course.
seriously good players like up front now. You know, they've got a lot of depth, which I think before that was their only weakness. I think they didn't have, like, obviously now that Suarez has come in, they've got like guaranteed goals. But I think like the Atletico, like Madrid teams of the past, I think they just lacked that little bit of potency up front. They had like the solid at the back and great midfield, but I think they didn't have that quality. But now they've got so much option. You know, Cunha, like a young player, got great feet, good goal scorer. You got like Suarez, everybody knows what he's like. And then you go and sign Griezmann as well. It's a bit overkill, but we'll see.
and on a team that haven't made as many signings, Ed, Liverpool. We were having a look at the Premier League website of ins and outs, and there was only a single name next to Liverpool, and that was Konate. So, Ed, what are your thoughts? I don't think we've spoken to you over the last week or two. What are your thoughts on Liverpool's transfer window?
Yeah, I think if you were to sum it up, it's probably been a poor window. I think there are definitely still gaps in Liverpool's squad that needed addressing, particularly given how much their rivals have spent and added to their depth. Liverpool do look a little bit short now. I think if you look at their 11 and their maybe 14, if you include subs, they're still right up there. And we're going to come on to it later, but that's why I've put them up there in terms of where I think they'll finish. But they do look a little bit short. Konate, I think, is a good signing for the amount we've paid for him. I think we'll definitely get a return on that value, either through his performances or if it doesn't work out, I think we'll get a decent amount of money back for him. But yeah, I think there's a hole in midfield because we've let Wijnaldum go, who over the last 2 seasons has played all but one Premier League game, and we haven't replaced him. And a lot of our central midfield players are injury prone, and up front you've got the 3 guys plus Jota up there who are very good. But if one of them gets injured, we're struggling. If 2 of them are going to the African Cup of Nations, we're struggling. So it's been a frustrating one from a Liverpool fan perspective. Just going back to what Chris was saying about Newcastle, I think I'd agree that they've probably had the worst window. I'm just looking down the list of players they've got rid of. There's a lot of young players that they've released there, which, fair enough if they're not good enough, but could they have recouped a bit of money for them? That could have helped them. That could have given them a bit more money to go and spend. A couple of players that they've let go for nothing as well. Lejeune, who's been a Premier League starter for them in the past. Yoshinori Mutu, I believe they spent a fair bit of money to bring him to the club, and he's been released. Matty Longstaff gone out on loan. There's some interesting dealings at Newcastle, so they've, in my opinion, also definitely had the worst window. Best window, I think there's a couple of candidates. I think actually Villa have had a good window. It remains to be seen how well their recruitment has done. But I think Buendia is a good signing. Danny Ings is proving to be a good signing so far. It'll obviously be tough to replace Jack Grealish because he had such a massive impact on their team as a whole. But they seem to be doing all right. Whether they'll finish as high as they did last year, probably not. But I think they'll do okay. The big ones, yeah, Man United, I think, have had a good window. I think they've, for the first time in a long time, highlighted what they needed and brought in players that are capable of doing that. I think it's possibly a little bit of a tactical play to keep the fans quiet in terms of wanting the ownership out. I think Ronaldo signing embodies that. So I think they've... it pains me to say it, but I think they probably have had the best window, Man United. And then what was the third one? What was the third option? Oh, craziest transfer, wasn't it? I think it's probably a toss-up between Lionel Messi, because I just presumed he was always going to be at Barcelona. I thought he'd be Barcelona through and through. I still feel a bit sad that he didn't get a proper send-off. Like, imagine how amazing it would have been for Messi to play his last season at the Bernabeu. Wow, Camp Nou.
Oh no!
Yes.
And like it being a full capacity crowd, like it just would have been like so symbolic, and it's such a shame that he kind of left through the back door. But also the other one that caught my eye was his name's completely gone.
That wasn't Patrick Van Aanholt, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, yeah, I'm going to go with Lionel Messi leaving. Was my shock transfer.
Fantastic. And Jack, Ed mentioned Ronaldo and United having a really good window. Do you agree with that, or do you think someone else in the Premier League had a better window than Man United?
I think in terms of like high profile signings, that's got to be up there with. I mean, Chelsea had like you look at like Saul and Lukaku's very good as well. Because I think they do make a big like difference to Chelsea, the depth now that they got up front and in the middle. But I think when you're looking at the complete picture with Ronaldo and even with Sancho as well, like the change of maybe it might even be the way quite be changing the way United play. I think because I don't think the way they currently play, I don't think quite suits Ronaldo. But you can't really have him in a team and not play for him. So it will be interesting to see how he fits in. But yeah, I think Man United is probably just about takes it. I think the outsider for me would be Leicester. They made some great signings early on, and I think they then they got Lookman on loan with an option to buy. Great young player, could do really well. And Vestergaard, I mean, is a solid player, but he's good backup for Fofana, obviously, because he's out long-term injury. He's good to have as around the place as like a backup. So, and you look at the other ones. I think is it Sumare, centre midfield.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the name of the striker they brought in.
Patson Daka.
That's it. Yeah, he's obviously it seems like a natural goal scorer, so it actually could be like a really good window for them as well.
Definitely. Barnes, there's only one transfer which is sort of spiraling around your life at the minute, and that is George Russell potentially going to Mercedes, and that's for the F1 fans out there. If you don't like, completely ignore what I'm saying here, but Ash, anything catch your eye? Anything that you thought was quite interesting in the final day of the transfer window?
I have to admit, I am struggling to concentrate with all the George Russell rumours to Mercedes, but I'll try my best. And first thing I'm going to do, I think, is a retraction, a first of many for me, probably on this podcast. But I'd like to formally apologise to Everton. I think, having criticised them a lot in my first few podcasts for no reason whatsoever, I've looked at their transfer business, and I'm quite a big fan of sensible signings and not. I find it very difficult to say I've spent £150 million on a player, therefore it's a good signing, or £500,000 of wages. Well, I think Everton have signed, considering their FFP problems, they've actually signed quite wisely. They got players. They got wingers in like Andros Townsend and Damari Gray, who are not standouts on paper, but to the system they want to play, they actually make sense because they're going to get a lot of crosses into the box. And I also love the kind of Nico Cranchard, Harry Redknapp kind of signing with Solomon Rondon returning to Everton under Rafa Benitez. Absolutely superb signing. He'll probably do quite well. Probably score about one goal, but he's going to put himself about, and he'll probably be, as I said, he fits the manager's style of play. He's been with him, I think, in China and at Newcastle, obviously. And he fits the style of play that Everton will play. So that makes perfect sense. I think another team that had a good transfer window has not been mentioned yet is Spurs. Not necessarily just because they kept Harry Kane, but I think some of the signings they made and some of the players out are probably good for them, getting rid of rubbish players like Aurier, signing Romero in centre-back. I think he was probably one of the best centre-backs in Serie A last season, so I think that's a good signing. And I think them getting in Patrici as a sporting director role and sort of having that middleman between the manager and Daniel Levy is, I think, will prove a good decision. And yeah, I expect the Spurs' transfers to show they will do well this season. In terms of bad transfer windows, I obviously agree with the lads in terms of Newcastle, but I can't help but mention again Barcelona. I mean, how can one club collapse so fall so far in one transfer window? You've got Lionel Messi leaving, and you've got former Newcastle player Luke De Jong signing on deadline day. What could be worse, really? I mean, no offense to Luke De Jong, he might score a few goals, but just an absolutely bizarre window. PK and Jordi Alba having to reduce their wages just so they could sign on Sergio Aguero. I mean, absolute turmoil. In terms of craziest or weird transfers, I think I mentioned this one in the chat earlier to you boys, but Milan Pjanic, another Barcelona player, randomly going to Besiktas. Completely bizarre. I thought Barcelona only signed him 2 seasons ago, and he was going to be one of their key midfielders, and he's already left. Another quite fun one, Javier Pastore. Anyone remember him? Who's gone to Elche, so his career is pretty much over.
Bold
So, yeah,
statement.
apologies to all the Elche fans. You're my new Everton. I'm just going to go after you now. But yeah, it's been one of the craziest transfer windows, though, in certainly in my memory anyway. I can't remember so many big players moving for such huge monies and things like that.
Yeah, Lynchy, have you recovered from this transfer window? It seems a bit mad that all the things that have happened. Have you calmed down now, or are you still a bit riding on the roller coaster of the summer 2021 transfer window?
Well, it's quite good, isn't it? I mean, looking at the transfer rumours each day, and like Ash said, I think especially with it being the first relatively normal summer in football since COVID, and the amount of money that's been spent, just not just on fees, but also actual player costs. It's been quite startling, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think anyone expected the amount of big signings we've had this summer a year ago. I think for me, I think Chelsea have had the best transfer window. Primarily, well, obviously, I think because they were the team who needed a striker the most out of anyone. I think even more than Manchester City, to be honest, because we know Man City can play without a number 10. But I think the signing of Lukaku is going to prove to be a great signing. But also the amount of money they got in for players. I mean, they pretty much spent nothing because they obviously got 40 million for Abraham, 30 million at Zuma, 25 million for Tomori, Zappa Costa as well. The centre back they sold to Crystal Palace as well. I think he was nearly 20 minutes. Is it Guy He? I'm not sure how to say his name. Yeah. So I mean, they pretty much recouped all of the money they spent for Lukaku. Obviously, got Saul on loan as well. I mean, I think we can all agree they look like a pretty frightening team this season as well. So they've almost strengthened without actually spending any money to do so.
Don't forget a Bettinelli, Lynchy, on a free.
Yeah. Good third choice keeper as well.
Good, that's what you want.
Very good.
I think it's been quite hard to think of a sort of weird or wacky transfer. I mean, I think the boys have covered most of it. The one that comes to my mind is also Chelsea related. It's Danny Drinkwater to Reading on loan. Mainly because of, him and Kante have just gone in completely different directions since they won the league for Leicester. I mean, I know, obviously we know that season when they won the league, Kante was the standout of the two, but there's no denying that Drinkwater had a really good season then as well. And we thought both of them would push on once they left Leicester. But I mean, he's just literally disappeared off the surface of the earth since he's left Leicester. He hasn't done anything wherever he's gone. Burnley on loan, I think, wasn't it, most recently? It's quite a hard one to think of. Obviously, the boys covered most of it, but that was the sort of wacky one I had to think of.
I think Reading got like Barbara Rahman in and also like Scott Dan, I'm pretty sure. So they've gone for some really obscure signings, Reading. I think we'll see Reading in the Premier League next year, I'm sure.
Hopefully not. We're having in League One.
Yeah, well, of course, Chris.
Aaron Lennon's back in the Prem, isn't he? All hail.
Yeah, re-signed for Burnley again. I thought he was already there.
Yeah. He went spent a season in Turkey, and now he's back at Burnley. And they also signed Wayne Hennessy on a free. Yeah. Absolute journeyman, Premier League journeyman.
To be fair, Burnley signing Cornet as well was such a weird one. Like, you would have thought Cornet would have went to, a more fashionable team, let's put it that way, rather than.
Are you calling Burnley and Sean Dyche unfashionable?
Well, as Barnes would say, they're just a bunch of S-houses, aren't they? Really?
Wasn't it when they said that like he really didn't want to go there? Like when they offered after Leon accepted the transfer fee, there was rumours saying he really wasn't keen on the idea of going to Burnley.
Yeah, he took a lot of time to think about the transfer. I need time to think. Please, someone else give me an offer. Not
he had to
Burnley.
Google where is Burnley or what is Burnley. I'm pretty sure. No offense to Burnley.
To be fair, I've lived near Burnley. It's all right. It's not so bad.
There we go. Thank you for saving this podcast. We'll move on to the final or the penultimate section of today's episode, which is a top four recap. So one of our earlier podcasts, we did like a top four sort of predictions across the pod. And apologies if you're watching this on YouTube, then I'm going to overlay our grid of what our predictions were. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, then I apologise, you won't be able to see this. But I just want each of the boys to go through their top four, say it out loud for the people listening at home. And if you still believe that you're right. So, Chris, I'll start with you.
So I've gone with Man City first, Man United second, Chelsea third, Liverpool fourth, and I'm gonna back past Chris here and say he's done a good job. I'm gonna stick to that prediction. What I will say, I think between Man City, Man U, and Chelsea, I reckon that is going to be very, very close. And to be honest, I kind of hope for a tight title race this season because I haven't really. I know Ed will disagree after what happened a couple of seasons ago with Liverpool winning it by a country mile, but obviously from a neutral point of view, I kind of want to see a total race go down to the wire to the end, if you know what I mean. Like I mean, it's probably also the fact that obviously Arsenal have been nowhere near a title race as well in that. But yeah, I kind of hope from a neutral point of view that we do get a title race, close to the wire. And as for Liverpool in fourth, I think they'll make it, but I think they'll make it just. I think Leicester will push them close to the fifth place spot, or fourth place spot. Sorry.
Nice. Ed, you've gone for the same top four, but in a slightly different order. Talk us through your top four.
Yeah, of course. Just going back.
Jamie Carragher's just entered the podcast.
Very poor Jamie Carragher. So my top four were Manchester City first, Liverpool second, Man United third, and Chelsea fourth. I'm also in a similar position to Chris that I really want to stick with the past version of myself that went with this, but having seen all of Chelsea's transfer dealings and their start to the season, it's hard to say that they're going to finish fourth. So I'm inclined to swap them and Manchester United around. I want to leave Liverpool second because I'm quite enjoying the fact that everybody's kind of writing them off and Chris saying that they might even not make top four and that Leicester might get it. So I'm going to leave Liverpool second. Just pray that we don't get too many injuries up front. Yeah, I think that's my only change, is to switch Chelsea and Man United around because Man United are the worst team in the world.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm glad Owen and Josh Leafy aren't here. Ginge, again, slightly different top four. Let's hear your thinking. This is what pre-transfer window shutting. After the transfer window is now shut, do you still back yourself in the past?
Yeah, so mine's Man City first, Chelsea second, United third, and Liverpool round up the top four. I'm going to stick as well. I can't exactly remember when we done this, whether it was before or after Lukaku.
I think it was before.
I think it was just before. Yeah,
so
I think there were strong rumours.
Yeah, I had a lot of faith in Chelsea then because I was obviously quite ballsy for me because now with the Lukaku joined, I think I'm much more confident they'll finish second. Yeah, I'm going to stick with mine. I think it's going to stay as it is, as I put it, in the top four. I think the tight thing, I think City and Chelsea, I think are going to be a little bit ahead of the other two, and I think Liverpool and United are going to be battling it for the third. I think it's going to be a lot tighter for the third place, but I think Man City and Chelsea, I think, might run away with it.
That's disgusting.
And now to Ash, this is interesting. You don't think, Matt, or you didn't think Man City were going to win the league, not even in the top two. Ash Barnes, what is your top four looking like?
Our pure stubbornness, I'm going to stay the same because I'll refuse to, admit that I'm wrong. But I think picking Chelsea first now probably looks maybe better than it did when I originally picked it. So I'm reasonably happy with that one. Liverpool, I actually agree with Ed. I don't know why people think Liverpool won't be very good. It's not all about, I think just because of the transfer window and they haven't signed anyone, transfers aren't the be all and end all. Signing players doesn't guarantee success. And I just think Liverpool have been so good over the last two seasons. I don't really see why they'd be any worse this one. So that's why I put them second. Third, obviously you mentioned Tang there, Manchester City. I think it does seem harsh, but that's only because, Chris, Ed and Jack have put Manchester City in first. I just don't think they've had a great window, really. I think not necessarily they're on the way down, because that would be unfair, but I don't think they've necessarily strengthened in the areas perhaps they most needed. I'm really surprised they didn't get, a big striker in. whether it be Kane or someone else. And I'm not sure. I'm just not sure they're going to do as well as necessarily people think. I don't think they've, improved on last season. I think Pep does tend to have a limit with teams. He can only go. I don't think they sort of hit that point where they can't go that much further. So I don't think they're going to have the best of seasons this year.
Sorry to jump in.
Fourth place.
Just before you do fourth, I kind of can see a future where that actually happens. I completely agree with you. I can see a position where Man City maybe aren't doing so well in the league, so they prioritise the Champions League, something like that. I could completely see that happening.
Do you not think that every season we see, maybe not last season where they won the title, but when Man City lose, they always lose in the same fashion. It's either, in big finals, it's Pep overcomplicates. In the Premier League, it's we can't break a team down. The machine isn't working. We haven't really got a plan B. And I think that issue hasn't really escaped Manchester City, and I think it might come back to bite them this season. Manchester United in fourth. Again, they have had a good transfer window. I think it'll be churlish not to really mention that they've signed Cristiano Ronaldo, and he will score a lot of goals this season. I think that may make a difference. However, again, similar to Manchester City, I don't think they've strengthened in the right areas. And as I've said a few times on the pod now, sorry, Leify Owen, I'm not sure Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the man to take them to the next level. But he probably is the man to keep them in around fourth place.
Wow, harsh words there.
Where do you think United should have strengthened, Ash? Just before we move on.
Centre midfield.
Yeah. Fair point.
I don't think Fred and McTominay are that strong in comparison to, for example, Chelsea are signing Saul Niguez. He's an excellent player, and he probably won't even start for them. You think Manchester United could do a player like that? And the Donny van de Beek situation just makes absolutely no sense to me. I would say he would be more than better than Fred and McTominay.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one, isn't it? I think that was the one area United should have strengthened but didn't. But I think other than that, they did cover a lot of bases. I think centre half was a big one for them, and they brought in one of the best. But yeah,
that's true.
I don't agree with you on Ronaldo. I'm not convinced he's going to score loads of goals. It remains to be seen.
It does. Owen's going to hate you.
I think Solskjaer is also not the right person to bring them trophies. I agree on that.
There we go.
Move on.
Moving on, Lynchy, round off this discussion with your top four for this season.
Yeah, so I've joined Barnes and put Chelsea first. I think the signing of Lukaku, like I mentioned before, sort of was the last piece of the jigsaw. I mean, they're really impressive the way that they were able to defend against Man City in that Champions League final. And we saw that again against Liverpool just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, when they went down to 10 men, but they never really looked like the floodgates were going to open. They were always still dangerous on the counter-attack, especially with Lukaku up front being able to hold the ball up so well. I'd tend to agree with Barnes as well, what he said about Man City. I mean, I don't think they've really addressed that problem where they lost in the Champions League final 1-0. They couldn't break Chelsea down. Never really looked like they were going to break them down. And we did see that again in the first game of the season against Tottenham. Tottenham looked pretty comfortable towards the end of that game. You associate team with Man City, there's so many creative players. You think they're almost guaranteed to score every game, but they do have that in them where they just can't seem to break teams down, which is really surprising. I think I would have put Man City first if they had signed you have to say Harry Kane was most likely one, wasn't it, up front? I mean, the amount of goals he would have got on a creative team like that. I think in the Champions League final last season, that was Jesus just doesn't cut it for me in terms of a starting week in, week out striker for a team like Manchester City. Manchester United, I think if they hadn't have signed Ronaldo, obviously we did this before, but I think the signing of Ronaldo does sort of cement the third spot for them, which I put them in. I mean, I think he's still guaranteed to get at least 15 goals if he starts regularly for them, even though it is a bit of a short-term signing. I mean, you're going to get probably 2 years maximum out of him. Obviously, he's peak physical condition. It's going to be difficult for him to maintain that beyond those years. I tend to agree with Ed as well, what he mentioned about centre midfield. I think almost the Ronaldo signing in that last week, the window almost distracted them a bit. Obviously, all the publicity surrounding that and obviously pushing the deal through distracted them away from signing a centre midfielder. I mean, they were linked with Camavinga, weren't they, all summer? Then it just sort of appeared in the last 2 days. Real Madrid were able to get that deal done really quickly, and it begs the question: did he not want to join Manchester United? Did they not push hard enough for it? But I think apart from that, they did make good signings in areas they needed to strengthen. Liverpool, it's a bit harsh of them being fourth. I think mainly because of the signings the other teams have made, and already how I know Man City only really made one major signing in Grealish, but just how strong their squad already is. I think if Liverpool had addressed, I think the risk for them is the African Cup of Nations, to be honest, or just any injuries to their front four, if you include Jota within that and Firmino. Mane and Salah going away for a month. It's hard to see potentially where the goals are going to come from over that month. And if they had addressed that area over the summer, I think I would have probably put them ahead of Manchester United, especially with the amount of goals Salah has seemed to continue to get. Well, Mane last season obviously he's dropped off quite quickly. But I mean, like, this is a squad who's won the Premier League. They've won the Champions League, this squad, so you definitely can't write them off. Personally, I think this top four, I've put Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Liverpool. Obviously not in that order, you can't be sure, but I think the top four, those 4 teams, is pretty much nailed on. I think those 4 teams have just got way too much compared to teams like Spurs and Leicester, who might be pushing towards the 5th and 6th place. I think it'll be really tight between these 4, but below that, I think there'll be quite a wide margin.
Absolutely. That's very, I think I agree with you. The top 4 are going to be, I think, the top 4 that a lot of people have chosen. And just for completeness, myself and Owen also agreed with Chris with Man City first, Man United second, Chelsea third, Liverpool fourth. We'll just quickly touch on Leafy. He thought Man United first. He's the only person that thought that, by the way. City second, Chelsea third, and he's put Leicester fourth. Is Leafy just being a deluded Manchester United fan, putting United first and showing his naivety around football with putting Leicester fourth? Open for discussion there, lads?
He's just on a wind-up.
I think he's just trying to wind up head up on that one, isn't he? Surely.
Yeah,
Trying to wind up poor Liverpool
City
fan.
second, though.
Embarrassing, really.
We're all back now. And I think there's only one last thing to say on the Josh Leafy thing. Happy birthday to Joshua Leafy. He turned 26 years old yesterday. And we give him an early Bath birthday on the Early Bath Football podcast. But just saying happy birthday, Leif. Can't believe you're not here. But I'm sure we'll celebrate with you sometime soon. And we've gone on for another 52 minutes now. So I'm probably going to draw it to a close there. If people want to comment down below on what they think their top 4 is, then that'll be really cool. It'll be interesting to see what people think and whether we're just completely crazy and don't think and don't represent a large portion of the football community. But please do leave a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube, and do comment on anything that you've heard of in this last 50 odd minutes. And if you disagree with us, I think I'm going to end it there. So it's bye from Chris, Ed, Ginge, Ash and Lynchy and me. Goodbye.